Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Chief of Army Staff General Ijaz Malik has reaffirmed Army's commitment to pursuing fitna al-Khawarij till its complete elimination, saying, let me quote the Inter-Services Public Relations, with the resolute support of the nation, the Pakistan Army, in collaboration with the law enforcement agencies, remains steadfast in its determination to eliminate terrorism and extremism in all its forms, ensuring the restoration of lasting peace and stability across the country. Unquote. Now, this comes after 16 security forces personnel embraced martyrdom during intense exchange of fire with Fitna al-Khawarij in Makeen area of south of Waziristan. President and Prime Minister both have condemned this particular cowardly act of the terrorists of Fitna al-Khawarij and have also expressed deep sorrow over the martyrdom of these brave soldiers of Pakistan Army. Meanwhile, we have also seen envoys and the special representatives of G7 plus countries have called on the Taliban to intensify counter-terrorism efforts. In a joint statement, what it said, let me quote, some terrorist organizations continue to enjoy a safe haven in Afghanistan, planning and executing both internal and cross-border strikes. The envoys also called on the Taliban to take concrete steps to eliminate these threats, which they want could destabilize not just Afghanistan, but also neighboring nations and the wider region. Unquote. Now, let's bring in our esteemed panel of guests to talk about this pressing issue Pakistan is faced with, the resurgence of terrorism and what are the options. In the studio, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Air Vice Marshal, retired Ijaz Malik, Senior Analyst. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On Skype at the same time, we are honored to have been joined by Mr. Maj Gen, retired Zahid Mahmood, Defense Analyst. General Mahmood, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Malik, now these statements, of course, Army Chief went to South Waziristan, interacted with the security forces personnel over there. He was given a detailed briefing regarding as to the security landscape and the kind of challenges Pakistan is faced with. He has commended the kind of resilience, the courage, and the steadfastness the security forces personnel, along with the law enforcement agencies personnel, have exhibited in defending the motherland. We've seen since the Kabul takeover back in 2021 by the Afghan Taliban, this resurgence of terrorism and many of the precious lives have been lost so far. Is there any specific agenda behind the Afghan Taliban's approach in dealing with this particular problem? The red line for Pakistan, the Fitna al-Khawarij, which is having the safe haven over there in Afghanistan and perpetrating heinous terrorism from that side of the border?
Well, I would say that there are two aspects of this phenomena. One, that there is a convergence of so-called ideologies, I would say interests, and they have common roots. So the Kabul regime, which is obviously the Taliban, new version of Taliban, I would say, the second strand in Kabul, and the TTP leadership, which has taken refuge and they avail that those safe havens within territorial limits and jurisdiction of Afghanistan. And secondly, the regional players who want to keep Pakistan engaged on their borders and create a dilemma for Pakistan, wherein we have to devote our resources for security, and which is obviously a challenge every day. It is causing us loss of life, property at time, and general morale of the public at large. So with support of those, both I would say state and non-state actors combined together in Kabul and in the surrounding part of the Kabul, where at least the Taliban have some say, that makes the situation complex for Pakistan in particular. But it's not only Pakistan, it's the regional peace which is under threat from the challenge which is imposed by this particular militancy and terrorism which emanates out of Afghanistan. So this should be as much concern of the regional players as well as the international community as of Pakistan, if we want to see this otherwise very volatile region peaceful, stable, and we want the prosperity and economic growth in this region, because Afghanistan itself and the routes which are passing through or which are connected through Afghanistan, they are gateway for Central Asian states, connectivity and the other lifelines, they pass through that region. So unless the better sense prevails in the leadership of interim Afghan government, I don't think so the region would see the positive light of peace and stability.
Right. Let me bring in Major General Zahid Mahmood into the discussion also. General Mahmood, what's your understanding? Every now and then when you talk about this particular challenge that emanates from Afghanistan soil, a number of terrorist organizations, and particularly when we talk about the banned TTP, the Fitna al-Khawarij, having safe haven over there and operating with impunity from the Afghan soil, why? Many analysts say it is the matter of capacity on the part of the Afghan Taliban, that they can't take a concrete or decisive action against the Fitna al-Khawarij. Some are of the view that it is the matter of will, the ideological convergence. What's your understanding regarding that? It's been over 3 years now. Why the Afghan Taliban have been not able to take that concrete and decisive action against the Fitna al-Khawarij in particular?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jawad, first of all, thank you very much for the invite. I think it's a very pertinent discussion and a discourse. To me, there are certain reasons that why it is all happening in Afghanistan. Look, we were expecting that after the war in Afghanistan, this interim government and the people who are in power in Afghanistan, they must have learned from the past. But unfortunately, they did make a few pledges in Qatar, Doha, that Afghan soil will not be allowed to be used by any terrorist or anyone against any country in the region. But it has not happened like that. Primarily, today, Pakistan is victim of proxy war and state-sponsored terrorism, a mix of proxy war and state-sponsored terrorism under India via Afghanistan. So they are using that soil. So India is kind of acting as a sponsor of terrorism, sponsor of a proxy war, and in form of the TTPs, in form of the interim setup in Afghanistan, and many ex-Talibans. So they are available to them as client, and the victim is Pakistan. Then there are supporters and abaters also who are available to them inside Pakistan. So it is all, I would say, that economy which is related, which is associated with this terrorism, that is playing its role in this region and especially targeting Pakistan. Now, coming over to the capacity and will of the Afghanistan government, I don't think so. They have the capacity, nor they have the will, because they're worried that if they will take action against TTP, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, there might be divisions within their own, government and the factions. Because in the old times, they have been fighting together. TTP also helped them in their war against Americans. So they want to pay back in the same coins. And secondly, a lot of economics has now got attached with this terrorism. So India is pumping in a lot of money to destabilize Pakistan, to coerce Pakistan, and to destabilize the economic activity which is taking in Pakistan with the collaboration of China. So they are targeting not only Pakistan, they are targeting the Chinese economic interest in the region, and they don't want a free run or a dominance of China in the region. So they have, that's why they're targeting a lot of innocent people who are working on the CPEC projects. Then we have seen targeting Chinese nationals in Karachi and all that. So this is kind of a collaboration. Secondly, the government in Afghanistan, that is the caretakers in Afghanistan, they're not byproduct. They are not the byproduct of some democratic procedures, a process. They've not been there. They have not come to power through elections or some presidential elections or something like that. So that government is byproduct of the war. So the governments which are formed through war by the non-state actors, they are not the statesmen. So the biggest victim of this application, I would say, is the Afghani people. Those 400 million people, 40 million people in Afghanistan. They're the biggest victim because they are not having a government which is paying attention to the governors inside Afghanistan. They are intimidating the women. They are intimidating all the sane voices, and they are adopted this strategy of terrorism against Pakistan. And lastly, I would like to say that there are around 25, 26 proscribed organizations which are there in Afghanistan, out of which 15, 16 are working against Pakistan. So India is using that. Then there are organizations which are, functioning, which are anti. Some are anti-Chinese, interest. Some are anti-Russians interest. Some are anti-Central Asian. So this is again becoming a hub of international terrorism. And of course, the world has to understand this, that what kind of Afghanistan, especially the US, after their withdrawal from this, they have given us a disarrayed, disorganized, a chaotic Afghanistan, which is dangerous not only for this region, but for the entire world.
Right, your point is well taken. Let me bring in Mr. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon into the discussion. Also, senior analyst joining us on the phone line. Mr. Haroon, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, you would have definitely heard both of our participants already regarding as to what is the situation, as to what stops the Afghan Taliban in taking the decisive and a concrete action against the Fitna al-Khawarij. Recently, we have seen a resurgence of terrorism here in Pakistan a number of times. You have already given your view regarding that. Now, I'll try to put forth this particular point before you. General Mahmood has talked about that Pakistan is currently the victim of state-sponsored terrorism and also the proxy war. Given this particular fact, when we talk about the position of interim Afghan government, the Afghan Taliban, we know Pakistan has long held this very stated position that Pakistan wants a peaceful, stable and a united Afghanistan. So it directly affects, if the Afghan soil is unstable, it directly affects Pakistan. Given that particular stated position, Pakistan facilitated those reconciliation and peace negotiations, after which we saw the Doha Peace Accord was struck between Afghan Taliban and the US primarily. So in that particular light, the Afghan Taliban have got that particular responsibility to fulfill. On one side, this is an international instrument, keeping in view Pakistan's efforts in those peace and reconciliation efforts. Why the Afghan Taliban haven't been able to acknowledge as to what Pakistan did for the people in Afghanistan?
Thank you so much, Jawad. First of all, I cannot disagree with other participants. They are absolutely right. But I would add one point. The biggest victims are not Afghanis. The biggest victims are Pakistani. If you see even the death toll, this is much higher than in Pakistan than in Afghanistan on daily or weekly or monthly basis. And you asked me why this interim government is not considering Pakistan's long-lasting relationship with Afghanistan and particularly with them. Look, I am very clear about that. This Taliban had always been using terrorism as a leverage for talks and leverage for getting benefits from others. They did it same in their first phase when they were in power, and that time I was covering Afghanistan as a reporter. So I had been living in Afghanistan and covering every day from 1995 to 1998. So I had seen myself. They used terrorism as a leverage against their neighbors. They did it against Central Asian states. They are doing it against Pakistan. So what they want, you can say whatever they wish from Pakistan, Pakistan must provide. Otherwise, we will use terrorism as a leverage. This is their instrument, actually. So, I mean, I am very clear about that.
Requiring from Pakistan at this particular point in time. Why would they use at this particular point in time this instrument of terrorism as a leverage? What do they want to get from Pakistan? Are there any specific clear demands that they do hold from Pakistan?
No, what are the, I mean, the list of demand, but I know they want Pakistan to recognize their interim government, first of all. And secondly, Pakistan must not stop grain, food, and everything, I mean, smuggling of everything to Afghanistan. They want to basically, their entire economy is based on smuggling. So whenever you stop or you try to stop smuggling of particularly edible, they would definitely start using terrorism as a leverage. And one very important point, with your permission, I want to add in it. Pakistan had been facing the economic terrorism coming from Afghanistan. Look, they were manipulating with our currency. There was a huge smuggling of dollars from Afghanistan to from Pakistan to Afghanistan. They used, heavily. They did smuggling of edible in past. I mean, just imagine Pakistan is not producing edible oil. We are importing edible oil, and they were smuggling edible oil from Pakistan, and giving this entire smuggling is done by the Pakistan and Afghani rupees. So they did every possible thing which comes in the list of 15 points of economic terrorism, and that was there. You must appreciate the chief of the Pakistan Army, General Asim Munir, who totally claimed this smuggling from Pakistan to Afghanistan, and that is their problem. They are not happy with Pakistan now because their entire economy is based on smuggling and illegal activities.
Right, Mr. Haroon, I understand your point well. Now, indeed, commendable efforts put in by the Chief of Army Staff regarding, in order to curb this particular phenomenon of smuggling. And that is what irks them. That is what has irritated the Afghan Taliban. Now, when we continue to lose the precious lives, these brave sons of soil continue to defend our motherland against this particular menace that is not so much visible. In terms of that they are mixed into people, and that becomes even more challenging for them to fight this particular menace. What are the options at this particular point in time? We know the Pakistani authorities are vigilant. They've also devised a plan, Azm-e-Istehkam, the resolve to stability. IBOs are happening, yet we continue to lose our precious sons of soil. What's the way forward here from?
This is a very critical question and very difficult to answer. But having the background of this area, I'm very clear. Afghans are not going to accept any demand from Pakistan. They're damn clear of that. You have to control your borders. You have to fight out. And you have to, you can say, damage their infrastructure, which is still somewhere in KP. Unfortunately, law and order falls under the provincial jurisdiction. The provincial government of KPK is least bothered about law and order. That is the problem. And I don't want to blame anybody, but somehow or other, within this provincial government of KPK, there are people who directly supporting, this Kharjis and terrorists. This is the problem. We have to, fix our problems. We must have our house in order, and that basically responsibility lies with the provincial government. But if you say, and if you think that Afghan Taliban will consider what Pakistan is saying them, they won't. They don't want. You should be very clear about that. Okay. And you should understand this point. Afghanistan has become more dangerous than it was in the time of Ashraf Ghani.
So pretty much understandable when there was a time of the Hamid Karzai's and Ashraf Ghani's government, we saw that particular nexus of those militant outfits and those who came under the ambit of the authorities there in Afghanistan, and the nexus between the neighbor on our eastern border, India. But now, given the fact the Afghan Taliban, again, we come back to the same question. Pakistan having done so much for the people in Afghanistan, there hasn't been acknowledgement on the part of the Afghan Taliban. You've already elaborated in detail on that particular thing, but what about the international players? We have seen a joint statement by the envoys and the special representatives of the G7 plus countries urging the Afghan Taliban to tackle terrorism and do something concrete about it. What about them? Can they play any specific, any substantial role at this particular point in time in order to impress upon the Taliban to tackle terrorism in real terms?
They cannot put pressure on Afghan Taliban. You should be very clear about that. Because they are already gone from here, leaving the NATO-grade weaponry in Afghanistan, which had been used against Pakistan. It will be continued to using against Pakistan. So they don't have any leverage on Afghan Taliban. So Afghan Taliban are totally doing whatever they wish, and I have fears, and I don't want to blame, but the Indian investment and involvement is much higher than today that was in the time of Karzai and Ashraf Ghani. So India is blatantly playing while sitting in Afghanistan. So, this international powers should talk to India. India is behind right now for behind this terrorism which is coming from Afghanistan to spreading all over the world. And you remember, even this concert hall attack in Russia, people who belonging to Central Asia were arrested. They categorically, their statement in video recorded statement mentioned that they were trained in Afghanistan. So basically, this only this international body should talk to India to please stay away from Afghanistan. Don't invest there. For international terrorism.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Agha. Iqrar, Haroon, senior analyst, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Mr. Malik, there are a number of very important points that have been highlighted by Mr. Haroon. Now, when it comes to using terrorism as an instrument of leverage, do you agree on that particular point? And what is that exactly? Is it only the recognition of this particular de facto interim government over there that the Afghan Taliban want from Pakistan, or are there any other demands that they want from Pakistan to be fulfilled?
Yes, in addition to what Mr. Haroon has said, the repatriation of illegal Afghan refugees from Pakistan, that has also been a sore point between Kabul and Islamabad. So all in all, what they want, that they want to negotiate, or they want to exploit the situation to have some advantage through Pakistan. Of course, Pakistan is their sustenance lifeline. All the supplies, logistics, they are from sea, they're routed to Afghanistan, and the smuggling which has been stopped from Pakistani soil of the locally produced grains and food stocks, plus edible oil, as he mentioned, that's again very important for them.
But so if there is so much of dependency, if Pakistan provides the lifeline to Afghanistan, isn't that realization there? And rather than using terrorism as an instrument of leverage against Pakistan, there should be other options at the hands of the Afghan Taliban through which they should be dealing with Pakistan.
See, unfortunately, despite the fact that Pakistan has been, there is no comparison of strengths and on the two sides, be it the kinetic application or otherwise of resources. And secondly, what Pakistan has done since 1979 for the Afghans. But unfortunately, the way these two eras were handled by Pakistan, the supporters, starting from US and the proxy wars, the Iranians and KSA, all those who were, against the Soviet invasion, today's terrorists are the, new shape of those so-called mujahideens. The narrative which was built by West, led by America. So now this and then in this particular change situation, the unplanned, although they had sufficient time to plan, but unplanned
withdrawal,
drops, going out, exodus from Afghanistan, it gave a sense of jubilation, a sense of accomplishment, and it added to their pride as well as to their notion of having some strengths. So Pakistan needs to revisit its Afghan policy, wherein a combination of kinetic as well as regional diplomatic parleys, they should in combination or in tandem, they should play a role to contain Afghanistan. And unfortunately, India is a major player, and Pakistan is facing this Indian state-sponsored terrorism, which is channeled through the conduit of safe havens in Afghanistan. And right now, it's not only Pakistan or Pakistan's stability, it is the Chinese interest in this region, which India, on behalf of the Western players, they are trying to stop the development and progress under the umbrella of CPEC projects. So that's where the convergence of interest of all those who do not want to see in the Chinese economic as well as political influence in this region. So it's a very complex situation.
So when we talk about the region, the regional powers,
Yeah.
You talked of India, Mr. Haroon talked of India, and Ijaz Mahmood has also General Mahmood has also talked of India. What can be done? India is also the member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, one of the leading and very effective regional organizations. They've got anti-terrorism structure also. Is there anything that could be done from that particular platform?
Yes, in my in your show earlier also, I have a number of times highlighted this thing, that SCO has a built-in mechanism where regional security collaborations can be made, and it can be a very good instrument against the menace of terrorism. And the effect is, it's not only Pakistan, although Pakistan is in the forefront of being a victim of this prolonged terrorism, but even it's a major concern for China as well. And China has some stakes in Afghanistan for their development and even beyond. So I think, but at the same time, China has economic interest, despite their own differences, with India also. So this is, a very difficult chess game where everybody does the cost-benefit analysis of what they pump into the diplomatic channels, or what suits them best as a package deal. They opt for that option, and ultimately as it is said that the water flows from higher side to the lower riparians. So similarly, Pakistan remains the common denominator against all odds, and that's what we have been, for past 4 decades, we have been victim of. global interest in this region, and then the regional proxy wars, and ultimately we have been facing the economic losses worth more than $140 billion, as well as lives of around 80,000 plus people, and we continue to give sacrifice. But unfortunately, despite tremendous efforts by our valiant armed forces in the region, and who are giving, our young officers and soldiers are giving their lives for the defense of the motherland, and our leadership is obviously standing not behind them but with them at the war front. That we just saw the visuals, and the entire senior leadership is there right in the affected areas. But unfortunately, we have to put in some effort, and I always thought that National Action Plan and the subsequently amended National Action Plan, after 2022, we need to now focus on the areas which are beyond the purview of the armed forces, which means the civilian government and the community need to
community engagement. That's a very important point. I'll come back to you regarding that, the implementation in letter and spirit of that National Action Plan, also the revised National Action Plan after 2022, and how the communities can be engaged in order to eliminate this particular menace. General Mahmood, now already in your take, you talked of that how the Afghan Taliban took power. They are the non-state actors. They are not originally the statesmen. So you also talked of their consideration that if they take an action against Fitna al-Khawarij, it might lead to divisions within their own ranks. So keeping both of your observations parallel, when they are non-state actors and they have come through war and force, taken over the power over there in Afghanistan, it naturally makes us understand that they didn't come through a democratic process. So when they are not democratic within their ranks, so do they really care about what within their ranks actually think of, and how much does that particular sentiment within the ranks matter in the functioning of this de facto authority there?
Well, Jawad, first of all, if you allow me two quicks from the previous discussion, and then I'll come back to your question. Earlier about the ideology with, but today's the fight by the Taliban and the Taliban organizations. This ideology concept is already gone now, because there's no ideology. So this is they use this, but there's no acceptance of this, no more acceptance in Pakistan, especially the people of the previous FATA areas, ideology, it is all not terrorism. And secondly, once I was talking about the biggest victims are the Afghan people, that was in context of this government, this interim government in Afghanistan. They're not even paying attention to their own people, the Afghanis. So unfortunately, the humanity in Afghanistan is also suffering. So we are the victims of victims. Pakistanis are victims because of this poor government, unfortunate government, this government which is not caring about the country, about the brother, about the friend who have sacrificed the most, who have suffered the most. So they are not careful about us, and then equally not careful about their own people. So the point which I wanted to bring out at that time was that people of Pakistan should never ever develop any hate about the people of Afghanistan. They're also innocent. The people of Afghanistan have very good feelings about Pakistan, especially those who have been living in Pakistan, who have been educated in Pakistan. They know the value of Pakistan. So there is a large majority who are for Pakistan, but this government, because of the economy which is now attached with terrorism, and economy which has got attached with their policies, the economy which is coming from, of course, from India and some few other countries. But we talk loud about India because we have given a lot of dossiers about India. So we have a lot of things with us which have happened, and entire international community understand that. And one more thing quickly about the rats. You have spoken about rats in SCO. whenever there is some common agenda or something like, so India always tries to, scuttle that, or they would like to stay out of the, joint statement or something like that. But as I have already said, that there are around 25, 26 prescribed organizations, out of which there are organizations who are attacking Russian interests, who are attacking Chinese interests and Central Asian interests. So we need to tell Russia, China, without bringing in India in that look, this is a country which is really threatening us, and this threat or whatever actions they are taking against us is suiting India, being the watchdog of West, being the watchdog of United States in Indo-Pacific strategy. So this is the big mosaic, and the big picture has to be shown to the world and to these countries. And even if India is not interested for any joint action or joint collaboration for Afghanistan, we countries out without India, we can also, have a joint strategy and joint application. Now, coming over to the factions and the government and all that, unfortunately, I feel that this government is divided into many factions. Everyone in that government, there are few appointment holders, the prime minister and the defense minister and all that, but they only command their own clans or tribes or their own militaries, within the military. So who knows that this is a joint strategy which is being applied against Pakistan, or one out of them, or 10 out of 100, they're working directly with the Indians, getting money directly from the Indians. They have been, doing all this trade with Americans. Once Americans were deployed here, the easy passing of the convoys through these routes by giving money. What were the civil contractors doing in this Afghanistan, So we need to understand the dynamics of American presence in the United States, how they waged that war. The most difficult areas were given to maybe the Germans and all that, where a lot of kinetic was taking place. More than 20,000 contractors were in Afghanistan. So this war was fought by the contractors. A lot of dollars were there in Afghanistan. They brought 400,000 plus weapons. They could only take out 100,000 weapons from Afghanistan. 300,000, more than 300,000 weapons are still with them, sophisticated weapons. So they left it. Sometimes I doubt that they left it deliberately. So they don't want a peace in this region. They don't want peace. They want friction on the rims of China and Russia and in this region. So this is not stabilized. So this suits them in the Indo-Pacific strategy. And unfortunately, the world powers, the international communities, they only pay attention once their own interests are threatened. But I am giving this, I'm not warning them, but informing them that this place will again become a hub of international terrorism. And again, they will have few targets in the West. Once again, we will go through again the same dirty cycle of war, and there won't be much of the peace in this area. So the international community has to be realized that, look, we need to have a joint strategy. Otherwise, we all will suffer in this from
going through the same dirty cycle of war, making the people suffer there for 20 years, and then again striking a deal with the same people against you wage that particular war. Is that going to repeat itself once again if the Afghan Taliban are not impressed upon?
Exactly, that's going to happen, because these are the franchises. So they'll be available to some other. Today, you start paying little more than what Indians are paying them. You will see they will go and make havoc in New Delhi or somewhere else. You see, so you need to match. If they're paying them $1, you just pay them $1.5 and see the effects.
See any sort of seriousness in this particular joint statement of the G7 plus envoys and the special representatives of the G7 plus when they urge the Afghan Taliban to tackle terrorism, do some concrete about it, and they've also said that some terrorist organizations continue to enjoy safe haven in Afghanistan. So you don't see any seriousness in this particular statement or the intention in this statement of these G7 plus countries, including the US and the UK, of course.
Look, Jawad, we cannot ignore this. There must be some realization, but this realization has to be followed up by some actions. If we see some sanctions, if we see some capacity building of countries who are fighting these Taliban, or capacity building of those countries who are facing this terrorism which is emanating from Pakistan, then we would see that these are serious statements. But on the diplomatic front, look, this is a positive sign that at least they have spoken about it. They are not ignoring it. And the things which I've already hinted, that they can be the future victims. You see, once we talk of the ISIS, look at that phenomena of ISIS. So there were a lot of recruitment from the West. There were Australians who were recruited. There were Canadians. There were French. A lot of French were recruited through social media. So wherever there are deprivations, wherever there are, like many Arabs are living in the West. So once they will see the application of the West in Gaza and Lebanon, even if they have been brought up in the West, they are living in the West, they might become revengists. So they'll be joining these. There were many Westerns, non-Muslims, Christians who joined ISIS. So once the regions are deprived, once the regions are underdeveloped, so deprivation takes place. And that can take place from any part of the world. So once these fighters coming from the West, they'll fight with the Taliban, they'll fight alongside ISIS, ISIL, and other organizations. Once they will go back to the West, you think that they'll be bringing peace to that areas? That's going to affect their societies also. So this is a mutual, and we need to have a mutual understanding of the conflict, and we must realize, and we must keep voicing about it at all forums, and then it should be followed by concrete actions. Now for Pakistan, I would say that
Zahid Mahmood, your point is well taken. Unfortunately, we are short of time. I'll have to take a quick view regarding the implementation of National Action Plan, the revised National Action Plan, Mr. Malik.
Yes, actually, we had to work on de-radicalization, we had to work on the Madaris reforms, then we had to work on the capacity building and bringing in socio-economic growth or development after, the sole purpose of merger of erstwhile FATA agencies was to bring them at par with the mainstream population of Pakistan. But unfortunately, we have not been able to do that. Let's face this.
But General Zahid Mahmood already mentioned a point when it comes to the ideology. That particular myth has been completely busted. Nobody over there in the
I don't think so. There was
newly merged
ever any
over
ideology.
They don't buy it.
Ideology was
now.
just a narrative to cover, because the first emergence of the Taliban was because of the vested interest of the CIA and the others who wanted some force to be recruited here against Soviet invasion. So a narrative was given to them. So that is what the ideology makeup was.
Doesn't that make Pakistan's case stronger? Pakistan's case stronger before the eyes of the people of that particular area who don't buy this ideology, which doesn't stand there.
That's what I say, that we have to reach out to the international capitals and plead our case at all forums. But at the same time, I know we are short
the
of time.
community engagement in those local areas.
Those local areas. And the main point now we need to focus also that right now the world and the powers who matter, they are engaged in the European theater because of Ukraine war and in the Middle East. So this particular region is not on their priority.
Your point is well taken. Unfortunately, shorter time, I'll have to wrap the show up right here. Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik, senior analyst, joining us in the studio on the Skype. We were joined by Maj Gen retired Zahid Mahmood, defense analyst. Thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.